Good afternoon and welcome to today's Adweek webinar, a social-first approach to budget-conscious marketing. Today's webinar is sponsored by STN Digital. Let me introduce you to today's speaker. We're happy to be joined by David Brickley, CEO at STN Digital. David is the owner of social media marketing agency STN Digital, which works with some of the largest sports and entertainment companies. He's also the host of two podcasts, Business of Social and Entrepreneur Rap. Welcome, David.
Danielle.
Thank you so much.
Of course. What's going on? Good morning, good afternoon, West Coast, East Coast. Thanks so much for the opportunity. This is going to be awesome. So thank you all for joining. I know first and foremost, you guys have so many meetings and initiatives and things going on in your day-to-day, and to take time out of your week to spend some time with us means a lot to me. So I appreciate that. And also kudos to you. We're all, working on our craft, trying to get better, trying to grow, trying to make our brands that much more powerful and efficient. So what I guarantee you is you'll walk away with some knowledge. That's the least I can do since you're spending your valuable time with me this morning. So we'll hop right into it. Just a little bit more about me. Eat, live, and breathe social media every single day for our clients in these platforms. So hopefully you don't have to be hacking the algorithm each and every day. We can do that for you. So really, after a decade of experience running social media for some of the largest brands in the world, I want to really download all that knowledge for you this morning, this afternoon, of course, on the East Coast. So we'll start off with, what is the ROI of marketing? I know this is constantly something that Director of Finances and CFO, let's be honest, marketing and finance, we have a little bit of a rivalry here. Do you really need that much money for a TikTok agency to make our TikTok better? Do you really need to be paying these influencers for a distribution method? Why do we need to spend money on marketing? And what I like to say, and those of you that have significant others and spouses, obviously, that live at home, and of course I use Taylor Swift and the great Travis Kelce as the example here, but I love this quote. Try this at home. Stop saying hi, thanks, and I love you, and see how things go in your relationship. Then ask yourself if the ROI of attention, courtesy, and affection were an unnecessary expense or an essential part of your daily life. I love this from NT Fletcher from Ad Age, because I want to give all of us credit as marketers, as social media marketers. We are really the front door to our audience, right? We are really building this intimate connection. And I like to say that we want to build this emotional connection with their audience. And that's no small feat. That takes a lot of skill, takes money, resources, and just a lot of strategy that goes into that to make sure that we show up for our audience and we show up for that credibility and that trust that we're going to build as well. So really what we're doing each and every day on the social front is building value, really making sure that we have the trust we gain and the credibility that we can earn with our consumers. So to make this easier to digest, what I did is really call this presentation 8 free ways to 10x your brand. These are really the 8 things that came to mind and things that come up, working with our clients, being in the social platforms each and every day. Want to make sure that I provide value. So we'll break it down here in 8 ways. And of course, feel free to send your questions in. We'll answer some questions midway through and also at the end of the presentation. All right, so we'll start off. And some of these things you'll notice are not rocket science. Some of these things are the fundamentals of us all being able to succeed when it comes to social media. So the number one thing that I find is setting your target. Now, oftentimes I get this a lot, right? From prospects or colleagues or people that work in our space. And they say, David, we want to grow to 1 million followers on Instagram. The client that has 113,500 followers. And often my first response is why a million again? Is that, is a CMO or maybe in the C-suite, they just want the vanity metric? Does it sound cool? Do you just want to hit a number? Why are we trying to gain a million once again? So the number one thing that I like to do is really sit down and say, what does success look like for us as a brand? And I don't think often enough, all the people that touch social, all the people that touch marketing are sitting down and saying, what does success look like for us? When can we be popping that champagne at the end of the quarter, end of the year, that we did a great job? And what I love to always show, and I think we don't show this enough in social first marketing, is the funnel. We understand that the folks at the top of this funnel is who we're talking to on a daily basis. When it comes to social, we're building awareness, we're building fan loyalty, we're building interest. But what do we want to get at the end of that funnel? Whether it's dark posting, whether it's direct marketing or call to actions, it could be customer retention. It could be new subscribers. Of course, A lot of the times it's revenue, but knowing what the end result is, we can do a really good job of understanding what we need to do at the top of this funnel to build that credibility, build that trust, and not just say, hey, we want to grow to 1 million followers. No, we want to grow fans and trust and credibility with people that allow us to move them down this funnel in a very genuine way. That way that we can capitalize on that towards the end of this funnel. So number 2, track your progress. Now, I love James Clear. If you have any homework after this presentation, make sure to go to Amazon, check out Atomic Habits if you haven't already. But love this book. I think all of us marketers can get a lot of value from it. I love this quote. Goals are good for setting a direction, but systems are best for making progress. What I find a lot, and a lot of mistakes that brands are making, there aren't these systems, there aren't these checkpoints. We aren't looking at the data. We aren't A/B testing enough. So what I like to say, it's really difficult to play the game unless you have a scoreboard. It's easier in sports when we know at halftime if we're down by 10 or we have 2 minutes left in the game, rolling down by 1 point. Oftentimes when we're marketing, when we're on social, we're not looking at the data enough, and we're not realizing if we're on track, on pace, off pace to hit our goals. So when it comes to social media, by the way, I love this meme. I hope you guys have seen it on TikTok and Reels. But when it comes to social media, a few things that we're looking at to really gauge that brand loyalty, that interest, that awareness are things, and this could, be different from client to client or brand to brand, but things like engagement per post, engagement rate, obviously followers is a metric we want to look at, video views, watch time, increase in diverse demos, verified mentions, overall reach and impressions. These are different metrics we're looking at really to measure that top of the funnel. Are we building that loyalty? Are we engaging our followers? Are we building the right amount of awareness? These are metrics that we can track. And if we track this on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis, we can actually see some major headwinds, some major movements in terms of how we're connecting with our audience, hopefully in a genuine way. And the other reason why I really hit home like this look at the stats, look at the scoreboard, share this with so many different people up and down your organization is really this idea of purpose and impact. What we know is you need a team to reach any goal. You need a team to win. And oftentimes in social media, I hate to break it to you, when you're not really clear with your goals, when you're not looking at it as a team, man, it could be in hamster wheel. You're just going every single day. It's very mundane, and you don't really know why you're posting or why do we have to post 4 or 5 times a day on this platform? I don't see the vision here. It's so important for our teams to know the vision and really understand that we're getting somewhere with our strategy. I love this quote from Harvard Business Review. Why is it that some people can be extraordinarily well paid and work in pampered settings, but feel empty, while others can work in the sewers of New York City and feel fulfilled? Part of the answer is purpose. When we have a goal, when we're tracking the progress of said goal, and we start to see us making progress towards that finish line, it really gives our entire team purpose, and it gets us out of that hamster wheel effect that so many of us, social's hard. Social first marketing is difficult. We got to make sure that we're consistently connecting with our audience. So this is why it's so important, I think, from a team aspect, to make sure we all understand the impact of what we're doing on a daily basis. All right. Third thing, deep understanding of your audience. This is so important. We go back and we look at our marketing funnel. Who do we want to get in front of? Those people at the top of the funnel, I often find that brands aren't doing enough deep work on their audience, on their target audience, and who they want to speak to. So it's so important to, first and foremost, before you break down a strategy, what's working on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, first and foremost, who are we going after? What is that avatar? What's that buyer persona that we want to make sure we show up for and provide value for? Another great quote, I'll give all credit to Rory Sutherland over at Ogilvy. 97% of your potential customer base are not in the market to buy at any given time. We know this as marketers, but spending money, spending time, spending resources on those 97% is still a very effective thing to do. I think the reason why maybe the CFOs of the world, question us is because, we do too little of it because it's hard to quantify, right? It's kind of hard to quantify brand loyalty and awareness, and we can look at different numbers, but it's not specific. But I tell you what, if you can create that really engaging community, if you can create that valuable connection with your audience, man, oh man, are they going to trust you? Are they going to hold you in a credible light? And you will be able to reap the benefits of that long term as you build your brand. So we look at things like, who is our target audience first and foremost? Again, going on an offsite, sitting down with your full team, whether it's marketing and sales, and even invite finance into the room and say, hey, here's what we're going after, and here's why our strategy, here's why my budget is the way it is. So who's our target audience? Where do they hang out? Hey, I'm a Laker fan, so I'm using LeBron James. If we tried to go after LeBron James, I want to figure out, all right, we know it's LeBron. Where does he hang out? And when you think about where people are hanging out on digital, just overall macro level, 82% of U.S. adults are now on social media. 90% of U.S. adults making over $75,000 a year are on YouTube. And I know a lot of us brands are going after, those people with purchasing power. 95% of teens 13 to 17 years old are on YouTube. 77% of them are on this platform daily. We've all seen this stat. 2/3 of teens are on TikTok. And of course, 71% of active users on the app for Instagram are between the ages of 18 and 29 years old. I know a coveted demo that we're all trying to get more and more in front of and trying to build more trust and credibility, as that's really, the next generation with the most purchasing power. So what makes these folks engage? Once we sit down and figure out who our target audience is, who that avatar really is, what makes them engage? We use LeBron James as the example. We know he likes Drake. Drake brought him and his son Bronny out to a concert in LA. So if we're going after LeBron James and he likes Drake, what can we learn from the content that Drake's putting out in order to make sure we show up in the right way for LeBron? And of course, find your niche. I think oftentimes we try to be everything to everybody, and that's just so difficult to do. And making sure that you own your lane and you can be really that one-stop shop for your target audience will be great as well. All right, so then number 4, create value for that community. So you spend a lot of work, you've done your focus groups, you've done some analysis, you've really understood at the end of the funnel what your buyer looks like. Now it's time to create value for your community. And if you take a picture of your screen or you write one thing down today, I think really make sure that you remind yourself that our job as social marketers, how do we educate? How do we entertain? How do we provide value to that target demo on a daily basis? If we constantly ask ourselves that, it's really going to change our content strategy. It's really going to change our performance across social media. Danielle was kind enough to mention that I host a podcast, Business of Social. So I learn a lot from this, get a lot of CMOs, CEOs, director of socials on the platform just to learn and share data with. And Jack in the Box is a local fast food spot out here on the West Coast. She says sales overnight, brand over time. It's so easy to do that Facebook ad and have that direct marketing approach for lower funnel marketing. But we know that brand takes time. Building an engaged community takes time, and building that fan loyalty takes time. Another person I had on my podcast was a great episode with Jeff Finster. He's the CEO of Everbowl. They make things like acai bowls, and they have like 300 or 400 locations across the country. I know Drew Brees, former New Orleans Saints quarterback, has a bunch of them as well. But when he ran an agency with Neil Patel, he would say 8 for them, 2 for us, meaning we're going to give 8 pieces of valuable content, educate, entertain our audience. At that point, we've now earned the right to ask for 2 things in return. That's a big statement. And I think some of that maybe gave me an aha moment as well. But think about it. When you guys think about what you've posted on social over the last month, would you say 80% of your content was for the consumer, was to educate, was to give them a piece of value or entertain them? Or let's be honest, was it a little bit more self-serving? Was it more promotional? Was it more look at us? And we find that, right? When we have relationships, even in our personal life, if I'm asking you to take me to the airport every other day, at a certain point, you're going to not want to be my friend anymore. But if I value our connection and I wish you happy birthday and I buy you a cocktail when we go out and I care and I ask you about who you are, that's what I'm trying to get across today, especially in this first part of this presentation, is really treat your audience more intimately and really provide more value for them when it comes to our social media strategy. Additionally, let's not forget about the power of aggregation. This is something that I find a lot of brands forget about when you're thinking about, listen, a lot of brands are posting a lot of content. I have limited resources. I have limited bodies. I can't create, engaging, amazing content from scratch each and every day. How do I do it? The top brands that are really winning on social, they really talk about this power of aggregation. And to give you kind of an example, this may date me a little bit, but we all remember America's Funniest Home Videos. If you don't remember America's Funniest Home Videos, you've, I'm sure, seen Ridiculousness on MTV with Rob Dyrdek. What are these programs doing? Well, they're recycling the internet. You sit down on the couch, you turn the TV on, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And really with our social media handles, that's what we can really do. If we look at it that way, well, we're going to become the one-stop shop. We're going to become a place where you can sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. We'll keep you updated. We'll make sure you don't have any FOMO. We'll take it from here. That's a great way to look at it in terms of that. And also a great example is SportsCenter. Once again, sit down on your couch for 30 minutes. They're going to curate all the top highlights, all the top sports moments that happened that day. So that way you're very informed, you're educated, you're entertained. And that way at the water cooler the next day with your colleague, you're going to know that, LeBron James scored 50 points last night because SportsCenter did a good job of curating that for you. So that's another thing we can look at is it's our job as the brands to really aggregate the content that matters most to our audience so they find value out of it as well. This is crazy. I pulled this guy. I've never really seen this across the internet, but check this out. Just, in the sports world, ESPN, Barstool Sports, Bleacher Report Complex. First and foremost, looking on Instagram, they're posting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times a month. But look at the percent of user-generated content, that aggregated content, recycling the internet, if you will. ESPN's at 50%, Barstool at 80%, Bleacher Report 66%, and Complex 80% as well. You make a great argument that these brands in particular have done a really good job of really owning their lane in the marketplace, providing a ton of value, providing community, and really being known for something in their spaces. That's pretty incredible. So it's just, a reminder for all of us, how can we aggregate content that's already out there and redistribute it to our audience on our respective feed? So hope you enjoyed the Rihanna halftime, GIF here. But we're halfway home. Would love for you guys to drop your questions into the chat here. We're going to do Q&A at the end. But once again, just a recap before maybe we take a couple of questions here midway through. Number one, set your target. Know why. Are we trying to gain 1 million followers? Why are we doing that? Why is that really helpful for the bottom line? And then we can then explain that to our CFO of why we're trying to do those things. Track your progress, not only for hitting goals and for the sake of stats and data, but it really allows your team to feel that impact on a daily basis so they don't get in the rat race. Deep understanding of your audience. I don't think brands do this enough. Can we sit down? Can we do analysis? Can we figure out what our core demo really, really enjoys so then we can feed them that healthy diet of valuable content? And again, create value for your community. Once you find out who your target audience is and you understand them really well, the content strategy becomes easy. SportsCenter knows that sports fans watch their content, so they feed them all things sports, and all of a sudden their audience walks away happy. So, Danielle, I don't know halfway through if you wanted to just ask a couple questions to break things up a little bit, but happy to answer some if we got a few.
Yeah, sure. We do have a couple here, so I'll dive in with some halftime questions. First one is, what KPIs are you focusing on to measure the success of your social media campaigns? And how do you correlate that to tangible business outcomes?
Yeah, that's a question I think we get a lot. And going back to, as people spend more and more budget, they want to know these answers. So again, at the top of that funnel, we look at awareness and interest. From a social media standpoint, some of the big numbers we look at is really engagements per post, engagement rate, the total reach, the amount of accounts that we've got in front of. Especially from an organic standpoint, let's keep in mind that social media is the only platform that we can reach millions and millions of people for free. It's a free product if we're not talking about paid and we're looking at organic. So what I like to do is once we look at subscribers or we look at watch time, we look at engagement rate, whatever numbers mean a lot to you and your team, then we can see how is that correlating to the bottom of the funnel, whether it's click-throughs, whether it's signups, whether our dark posting and our return on investment for our paid media direct marketing approach is getting much more efficient because now we're retargeting an audience that really loves us and finds a lot of value and credibility in what we're doing. So, obviously brand awareness is a somewhat difficult thing to check, but you really can measure that through engagements and data at the front end, and then tracking at the bottom end if you're seeing an uptick at revenue, subscribers, retention, et cetera.
Totally. Thanks for walking us through that.
Yeah.
And our next question here is very near and dear to my heart. I have come up across this. I am sure that you have come up across this too, as have many people in our audience. So someone asks, often social media best practices aren't followed because of a mandate from a higher up or a partner. Yeah. How have you navigated this to ensure that you don't hurt the algorithm and potentially turn off your audience?
Yeah, this is tough, right? If you're working at a linear network and you're dealing with a showrunner or a linear producer, they don't know the algorithm. They don't know what's working on TikTok with 13 to 17-year-olds. So it's very difficult in a meeting, in a 5-minute spiel, to explain why this piece of content may not work. What I found is really the only solution is data. If you could show, hey, I know you want me to post this 30-second linear looking television ad, 16:9 on Instagram, but let me show you the last 5 times we did that, what the engagement rate was. And then let me show you a different approach at how we've kind of remixed that, but still got the same end goal, the same call to action, and see how this performed 4x better. So what I recommend is, instead of going to less audience, let's go to more audience by simply remixing that content, even though we're getting the same call to action, the same result at the end of the day. So I do find when you show the data and you put that deck in front of the decision maker's face, it's pretty black and white. Like, well, do you want 1,000 engagements or do you want 7,000 engagements? It's up to you, but I can say historically, here's what the data tells us. And I found a lot of success doing that with people that, to their credit, they're not in it every single day. They own a different discipline. So you got to kind of show them the way sometimes, lead the horse to water.
Couldn't agree more, David. Audience members, keep those questions flowing. We'll get back to some more later. But now, David, I'm going to pass things back to you.
Danielle, I thought you were going to sing a little Rihanna for us. I'm disappointed. All right.
Not.
All right, we'll get back to it. So getting into number 5, this is a really big one and one of my favorite topics to bring up. I'm going to give credit to my friend Katie Daly, the VP of social media. She was the one that so eloquently broke it down better than I could at the time. But let's talk about this, right? I love this this comic strip. We need to stay focused on our marketing priorities and not get distracted by every shiny new, oh, look, a squirrel. This happened a lot over the last year or two, right? With the metaverse, with NFTs, things like Clubhouse and, Threads come out, and we want to move so quickly, even though we haven't really figured out, our audience on social media. So, what I call the width strategy is you're everywhere, but you're pretty average or below average everywhere, right? Where you're on every platform and you're doing your best to keep up, but your team doesn't feel that impactful. You don't feel like you're crushing the game. And also you're kind of like, let's be honest, you're a C+. You're not best in class. You're not better than all your competitors across it, because you just don't have enough teammates. You don't have enough time, resources to really dig deep with your audience in each one of these platforms. What I recommend, and something I really think all of you should think about, is when we look at our target audience, when we look at what gives us the best value, what platforms are working for us right now. And I much rather have you go super deep on fewer platforms. Let's call it TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And listen, yes, have the Twitter and X account, have Facebook, have Snap, but maybe that's something where you're just posting a couple times a week. Where on TikTok, you're posting 12 times a day. Like, that's potentially what you want to do. But we all know that we have limited budget, limited employees, limited resources. And I much rather have you be the best on TikTok in your industry, one of the best Instagram profiles in your industry, than be average across 13 of these different ones. These are, sprouting up at all times. So it's really worth considering, like, where are we getting the best return on investment on, and where can we be more efficient with our time? And really, just a little bit of a bonus tip here. What we find is anytime a platform like Instagram or TikTok releases a new feature, they'll never tell you this. However, they are artificially boosting that algorithm. We saw this with Reels when Instagram came out. We're seeing this right now with collab post. It's really, the best way to get distribution right now on Instagram. Obviously, YouTube and YouTube Shorts. YouTube has really pushed that platform and really making sure that becomes top of mind, because they want that to succeed. They spend a lot of money on research and development. They spend a lot of money on employees creating the UI for these features, and they want it to win. So just a little bit of a bonus tip there. Anytime you see a platform releasing things like Reels or collabs or whatever it may be, it's smart to get on that stuff early, because that algorithm is being boosted to a lot more people than usual. Number 6, I would say, is think about how you can leverage your ecosystem. I think too often we think about just our owned and operated channels, but using, a sports analogy here, let's use the NFL as an example. The NFL, I think they have somewhere around 30 million followers on Instagram. But then when you factor in the 32 NFL teams and their entire followings, not necessarily everybody that follows teams follows the owned and operated NFL account, right? So you're able to tap into a different audience. Then you factor in, the 52-man roster across all 32 teams and all their social media profiles. Now you're getting an even wider net. And then, of course, the partners or maybe the sub brands that live under the NFL umbrella. Now you're talking about potentially 10xing your audience. And if you could think about that, what ideas can we do that make sense for both audiences? I think for an example, NFL does a great job of this, right? Every time they talk about a team on Instagram, they do a collaboration with them. So if they're talking about Travis Kelce and the Chiefs, they're going to do a dual post with the Chiefs audience and the NFL audience. And they're able to really two things. They're really leveraging that new feature and making sure that they're doubling down on that algorithm boost. And number two, they're touching a wider audience than just their owned and operated at NFL audience. So when you guys think about your brand, a lot of you on the call today are with brands like Disney and Nike and these huge brands. Think about all the brands, all the different levers inside your ecosystem. And if we can reverse engineer our content ideation with the ability to go wider with some of these collab posts or, being able to get retweets and things like that, man, oh man, can we really create such a higher distribution for free if we kind of reverse engineer the idea of that. All right, number 7, authentic content per platform. I know a lot of us have been screaming this from the rooftops for the last 10 years, and I'll continue to beat this drum. So the way I like it, and you can steal this analogy if you like, because I used to work in radio, but it would be disingenuous and silly to take a radio ad that's not visual and slap it on TV. Yet we take linear TV commercials and we slap it on social, which is being totally disingenuous to the platform. We're not showing up with our audience the correct way on social media. They're not expecting a TV looking ad. They're expecting a social media post. So when you look at our consumers, look at this GIF for a second. Let's stay on this for a second. This is how our consumers are interacting with our content. You better hook me in the first 1 to 2 seconds. And I'm just scrolling vertically most times on Instagram Reels, on TikTok, on YouTube Shorts. It's a different game. And linear ads and these, ads that we've seen over the years are just not working with this younger audience, and it turns them off. So making sure you show up correct on these platforms is so important. How do you show up correct? Well, we know through a lot of data and seeing this across all of our clients and all the social media that I've done, throughout my career, especially recently, face forward, lo-fi content is winning. How much do you ask? Plus 40% more views and 30% higher reach on average versus hi-fi video. I know this crushes the soul of our 20-year vet, linear commercial producer that wants to help us on social media. But I got to tell you, it's just not working as well as that lo-fi content, face-forward content that is more genuine. And it really just feels more natural to these platforms as you're scrolling through. We know this. 96% of people don't believe that ads are truthful, yet a lot of our content is very self-serving and looks like an ad. So immediately there's distrust and you're not creating value for me. So I'm scrolling by it. That's just so important to realize when we think about how our content actually shows up. What content is working? Here's a quick example, right? You see these more face-forward content. It looks like it can come from the brand, but it also can be coming from an influencer, be coming from someone I follow. Again, when you scroll on TikTok, even someone like me, anecdotally, I don't really know who's posting. Could it be ESPN? Could it be Bleacher Report? Could it be my friend? Could it be the athlete? You don't really look at the logo anymore. It's really about the discoverability of, does this content fit with me? And even looking at the Taco Bell example to the left, what I love about this is it has a high quality photo, but it uses, the UI of Instagram by using that poll feature. And again, we know that Instagram is boosting those algorithms as well. If you use the platform, it was intended to be used, right? So make sure that when we're using these different platforms that we're utilizing the stickers, we're utilizing the captions and the different things that are already built inside of these respective social media platforms to make sure that we show up and that algorithm is playing nicely with us. Okay. Finally, number 8, a way that you can really increase distribution, a way that we've done this, on the cheap, is ambassador programs. I think oftentimes when we think about getting distribution outside of our owned and operated, we think about influencers and maybe $100,000 plus budget. There is opportunities to do this at a very low cost or potentially even free. And we know from Oracle that people just trust these face-forward, lo-fi, TikTok-y, YouTube short type videos over, that self-promotional ad type content. So if you're a product, I've seen a lot of success here and we've seen a lot of success. Seed the product out to your top 25 fans or consumers, maybe top 50, top 100. But we found so much success by seeding out, whether it's makeup or whether it's merch or whatever it may be. These people are going to share this without you even asking them. So you don't need a contract. You don't need to tell them how to post this. They get it. They get the game. And when people receive something for free, they automatically assume that they owe us something, and they're able to really get the word out there in a really great way. So I know sometimes you guys may not have budget, but you have extra product laying around. You would be amazed what people do for free stuff. And especially if you create that kind of VIP community, they're going to be geeking out over that. If you don't have a product, it's VIP access. A lot of you guys work for really, really cool brands. Maybe you invite your top 15 most followed followers to your headquarters or to a special event or a backstage free pass. These are small things that we can do with limited resources and budget that can really drive the needle and increase the ability for us to go viral, because now our most active, most followed fans of our brand are getting an opportunity to talk about our brand in a different space and really extend our reach long term. So I know that was a lot, but I'll recap here, especially if you're just joining us or you missed the top half of the presentation. What are the 8 ways that we can all 10x your brand? I really believe if you all spend time in these 8 core areas, you're going to come back to me, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the road and say, wow, David, we really focused on, 1, 4, and 8, and it really changed the game for us. So again, set those clear goals every single time so we all know why we're going to the places that we're going and how it's going to affect revenue and the bottom line of our funnel. Number 2, track progress regularly. Look at that stuff weekly, look at it monthly, and celebrate those wins with their team so they understand the impact, so that they don't feel like they're just posting memes all day. They actually understand the value of the upper funnel. Number 3, know your audience intimately. You got to know your audience before you can strategize or put a content counter together of what they're going to find of value, which is number 4. Focus on that value first. You're going to really find that your audience falls in love with your content and falls in love with you and gets that brand loyalty. Number 5, something you all should look at. Let's look at all of our social media platforms. Which one gives us the most reach? Where are we most successful at? Let's double down on those and maybe turn down the ones that aren't really doing it for us. Number 6, leverage your ecosystem. If you guys just whiteboard out for an hour, I think you'd be amazed whether it's talent, showrunners, directors, partners of yours, ambassadors, influencers. There's so many options to create content to leverage that distribution. Number 7, show up authentically per platform. Again, don't slap that 16:9 TV linear looking spot on social. It's not going to work, I promise you. And number 8, especially people always think about influencers, but think about that special VIP ambassador program for you all to leverage as well. So that's the 8 steps. I'll leave you with a quick quote from my guy, James Clear. In order to improve for good, you need to solve problems at the systems level, fix the inputs, and the outputs will fix themselves. So a lot of the stuff we talked about today was not rocket science, but it's the fundamentals. David, how do I get better at push-ups? You got to do a lot of push-ups. And a lot of the stuff I talked about today is just reminding you guys that these fundamentals worked on day by day, week by week, quarter by quarter, is going to allow you to be best in class in your industry and really moves the needle for us and what I've seen over the last decade. So those of you that get this joke, I hope you laugh. But just know that today I gave you everything I had. And if you like this content, if you got any value at all from this presentation, we do this all the time, whether it's our newsletters, we do best practices for all the different social platforms. We have the podcast, really all to give back to our community and provide value for you all. So the QR code's there if you want to take your camera out real quick and subscribe. And on a weekly basis, we're dropping value just like you felt today to help you and your team succeed on social media, because we're in it every single day. We're rolling our sleeves up. We like to share that with our community as well. So what questions do you have for me? Would love to bring Danielle back too if you have any questions in the chat. And then again, if anybody here is interested in scheduling a 15-minute sync or just wants to connect, me or my team are happy just to meet more people and share ideas. info@stn.digital. But yeah, Danielle, if we have some questions, I'd love to get it rolling.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, David.
Sure.
So much content in so little time. Appreciate all of that. I know our audience has tons of questions, so we're going to jump in with those. Before we do, though, a few quick reminders here from Adweek. Today's webinar has been recorded, and we'll send the on-demand link out later today when it's available. If you'd like a copy of today's slides, you can grab those from the event resources area with all of these great nuggets of info. And also, just so you know, we'll get to as many questions as we can over the next 5 to 10 minutes or so. But if we don't get to your question today, please know that we will make sure they are all forwarded over to David and his team so they have the opportunity to possibly reply offline here. Now, let's jump in to some of these questions here.
Good.
First question on our list, how do you recommend adapting your tips, if at all, for B2B social marketing? Any adaptations to recommend on that front?
It's really the same thing. I mean, listen, guys, these are human beings that we're going after, right? So who are these purchasers? Who are these people, these decision makers at these different businesses? And what's that avatar look like, right? So looking at your current clientele, your current partners, who those folks are they the CFOs? Are they the purchase directors? Are they the sourcing department? Whoever those people are, guess what? They want to be entertained. They want to be educated. They want to be best in class. They want to get better at their craft. So if you can, reverse engineer what they would find valuable, and then your company shows up, your brand shows up for them, they're going to get that trust and credibility. So they'll listen to what you say next. It's all about, can we create trust and credibility and move them down that funnel? So when we hit them over the head with the call to action at some point, they're going to, feel good about our brand. So whether it's B2B or B2C, we all know that humans are making these decisions, at least for now. And we'll worry about AI later. So it's just important to think about what they like and go from there.
So true. It's like you don't necessarily check yourself and your social media preferences at the door, right? Raise your hand if you've not looked at a meme at work, right? So that's worth considering. Our next question here, you touched on this a little earlier today, David, but this is a specific use case example question, so I'll just read it out. What's wrong with taking, as an example, an Instagram post and blasting the post across all the other social platforms? Although the engagements may be best on Instagram, if I've already spent the resources generating that Instagram post, why not just post it to all the other platforms? Am I wasting potential engagements by excluding certain platforms? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So again, I would say even just with our clients, we see that the content that works really well on TikTok and Instagram doesn't work as well on a Twitter or LinkedIn, right? Or, Twitter and LinkedIn are more of that text base. You see threads, you see people kind of go to LinkedIn to kind of read and learn and be educated rather than watch a ton of video. At least that's what the platform is telling us right now. So again, you can plaster everything across all platforms and you'll probably do okay. But remember, the algorithm for all of you individually too, you're trying to keep your batting average high, because every time that you post something that that probably won't work or isn't genuine to the platform, you're lowering your batting average. So the next time you post content, it's going to serve it to less of an audience, because, these platforms has decided, hey, every third time you post, like, your audience hates it. So we're going to start to turn down this lever because we don't want people to log onto our platform and not like the content they're being served. So it is a delicate balance. So I would recommend, if it's totally against that platform's best practices, I would rather save it and find a different way to post it or not post it at all, rather than kill your batting average for future times when you do post that genuine content for that platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And save it for future repurposing potential rather than risking diminishing that reach. Thanks for
I have one quick anecdote for the first question too. One topic that I hosted at #sports was called 6 Ways to Retain Your Superstar Employees. That sounds like an HR talk, right? But I knew that, folks in the sports industry were having difficulty holding on to top talent. And I knew that content would provide a ton of value and that I could bring some value to, the consumer or to my target audience. So think about that too. When you think about B2B, a lot of folks are hanging out on LinkedIn, but what problems or challenges that they have that may not necessarily be your solve. I didn't go up there and say, here's the top 8 ways to grow to 1 million followers on TikTok. I actually talked to them individually and tried to help them with their day-to-day. And hopefully that gave me credibility and trust. So then when we do talk social in the future, they appreciate what I did. So that's another opportunity for you guys when you talk about B2B.
Yeah, great example. Thanks for that. Another question here, I appreciate this one, kind of ties back to what we were talking about earlier about getting the buy-in that is all too needed from higher-ups or partners. This is about the timing of that. So someone asks, what is the best way to provide a time frame for nurturing a meaningful audience when executive leadership is asking for hard numbers and timelines?
Yeah.
Any advice there?
I think educating the higher ups on how long this stuff takes. We've inherited large brand social media, and honestly, Danielle, we found that it takes sometimes 6 months to retrain that algorithm so that our content is showing up to the followers that have really been just inundated with ads and really stopped engaging with our content before we got brought on board. So it takes time to warm up that algorithm to the platforms that trust that you're not just going to be self-serving, that you're going to provide value and content that the audience enjoys. So that's one thing. And then the second thing I would say is really ensuring that I think people want to spend a bunch of money on Instagram or TikTok, and they want to get lower funnel results within the first 30 days. We've all been to the marketing classes. We've read the marketing books. Again, sales overnight, brand over time. It's going to take some time there. And then once you kind of get those first few lower funnels come through, you can start to do some projections and some analysis. But I think really just sitting down and educating, because I think people say, oh my God, I got budget, whatever it takes, I'm going to go forward. And then there's just a expectation. There's been a conversation that hasn't been had, or an assumption that's been made by the higher ups, where they think this stuff is going to produce, dollars within days, and that's just not how social media works, at least from an organic standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope it's helpful to audience members who may be struggling with that to hear that even big brands can take 6 months to reset something if you want to retool. So that's super helpful to get that insight. Yeah. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about AI. I feel like I'm talking with lots of different people from different spheres about AI. I want to get your take on the impact of social here. So someone asks, how do you think AI will impact social media strategy over the next year? So short-term thinking. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, the one problematic thing that I would just make sure we're all aware of is the mid journeys, the Dolly 3s. They are using copyrighted works in a lot of those imagery AI things. So kind of be very careful when you're using that stuff, because it could be pulling from artists that aren't getting compensated. So that's like something that has to be figured out. And I'm sure there'll be some lawsuits and things that kind of make that easier for us to use. But I will say, from like a ChatGPT standpoint, what I've said is, I no longer have to work from a blank canvas. You can really use these platforms to say, I am going after a 54-year-old CFO in this industry. What are some of the top 6 traits, or what are some things that they enjoy from a content standpoint? And you can really start to like beat that up. Now, it's never 100% right. I would never recommend just turning that in, if you will. But you really can start to when it comes to prompt engineering, you can really almost have that assistant, if you will, using AI to get you closer, get it 70% there. And then with your expertise and your career background, you can really beat that up and make it where it's an actual strategy. But currently really love it for that to start and get away from us just staring at that Google Doc with the cursor blinking. You can really start to use those tools to get you those head starts.
Yeah, absolutely. And particularly when you're talking about that whiteboarding exercise that you were mentioning earlier, of like, it can be a great way to fill in blank space.
And there's current creative AI tools where you can upload a 90-minute podcast and it will automatically cut all the highlights based on AI, learning kind of the vocal tonality of like when the clip is probably done. It gives you top 17 clips. It writes potential copy for TikTok. It edits for you. It adds captions. Like, this stuff is getting very, very complex and pretty amazing there. So I would keep an eye on that too. The AI creative tools can really, if you have a limited team, if you can upload a 90-minute podcast and get, again, 80% there, that's a lot easier than somebody writing down time codes and, editing each and every highlight individually and exporting those in an Adobe Premiere. So definitely some stuff we're keeping an eye on.
Yeah, definitely worth experimentation. So a little bit earlier, when you were talking about the potential of ambassador programs, right? You were talking about the opportunity to make, your top folks feel like VIPs. And we have a question here related to that. Someone asks, is there an estimate for how valuable a fan or follower is? It's probably going to differ from brand to brand. How would you recommend approaching that thought exercise?
Yeah, that's a great question. You could do things obviously like customer acquisition costs. You can look at even things like how much does it cost me to buy a follower? We've seen different things on Instagram, for instance, where $3 to $5 if you want to quote unquote do enough paid media to get one follower. So you can start to extrapolate that. Like, hey, we just gained 100,000 followers organically. That would cost us like $500,000 if we use the native paid media tools. So whether you're talking about the revenue, but again, I would really try to tie it to how are we bringing people upper funnel? We're creating this engaged audience that loves us and trusts us. Mid funnel, we're getting them off social, we're getting them their email or getting us to our website so we can track things like click through and form fill outs. And then at the bottom of the funnel, revenue, subscriptions, any data that we can talk. And what I find, unfortunately, is a lot of these departments aren't talking. Like, revenue's not talking with marketing, marketing's not talking with sales. The tech team that knows all the subscription numbers are not talking with the upper funnel marketing people. So the more you can really get ingrained with your team so you know what's working. And oh my God, we gained 100,000 followers this month. And weird, we actually gained another 10,000 subscribers. So can we have a correlation there and start to project in the future? So the more talking and the more teamwork you can do, definitely the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dig into that pain point a little further, shall we? We have
Yep.
a question here related to that just came up, so that's perfect. Someone says one problem that I tend to see is getting everyone on the same page on marketing goals. You illustrated that perfectly with that amazing dog comic earlier. It's easy to get distracted, especially in this world where there's constantly a new tool, a new channel. How do you recommend getting these teams aligned? What is your approach?
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend probably a reoccurring, whether it's monthly, quarterly, but just like the state of the department, state of marketing, and what's really working. I think again, we're in it every single day, so of course we know that TikTok is, an amazing platform if we're trying to get in front of Gen Z. Of course, we know that YouTube is really pushing YouTube Shorts, and we're seeing a lot of amazing engagement there. But if you're, again, if you're the CFO, if you're in C-suite, if you're a little bit further removed, you don't know these key things. So I think oftentimes if they don't believe just your numbers, showing what other brands are doing, competitors that they admire, showing what the platforms themselves are saying. I mean, the Instagram CEO alone has said, guys, the number one thing we look at is shares. The number two thing we look at is Instagram stories. Number three is in feed. If the CEO of Instagram is telling us that shares are the most important thing on his platform, we should probably create our content where it elicits sharing. So I think by educating, it's your job, I think, internally as a marketer, as a social marketer, to educate the folks that are in it every single day, finding fun analogies, maybe like I did today, and just try to find ways to make it land. Because once they get it, it's like, oh, okay. And then hopefully you get a lot less of just post it. It doesn't matter. Just get it up. Just get it up on Instagram, get it up on TikTok. It takes more time. It's a little frustrating. I get it. I'm with you. We can share a cry together on that front. But I really do think it's up to us to educate those folks that may not know the ins and outs of social media.
I agree. Thank you for that guidance. And speaking of, recommendations, you shared Atomic Habits earlier. We have a couple folks in the chat asking in various ways for recommendations of resources. So anything else you want to share on that front?
Wow. I have a lot. So I try to definitely read a lot. I would say podcasts are great. The Marketing Book Podcast is a great one that I listen to quite a bit. The Patrick Lencioni podcast is more about leadership and building teams. That's why I really focus about how do we find impact with these numbers on a weekly basis. Atomic Habits. I'm reading a lot of Alex Hormozzi right now. He's done an amazing job with his content strategy, $100 million offer, $100 million lead, both great books if you work in marketing and want to really focus on driving lower funnel success. So yeah, a lot comes to mind. One of my favorite books of all time is Never Split the Difference. From a negotiation standpoint, you can learn a lot about psychology there. So those are some things that I follow. But just staying in tune and making sure that you curate your feed, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Twitter, or what have you. Follow people, search online, use ChatGPT. But what are the top 15 marketers like the Seth Godins of the world and the Professor Galloways and the people that really speak this language that you can subscribe to newsletters, follow them on social media. So when they post about something, you can be first to know.
Absolutely. Thank you for those recs. We have a question here that I'm particularly curious to hear your answer to. We've talked about a lot of different platforms today. Is there a social media platform that you are surprised isn't leveraged more by brands?
YouTube. YouTube is the number 2 website in the world, yet I find so many Fortune 500 brands, it's not even on the radar. They want to grow on Instagram. They understand the importance of TikTok, thank God now. They want to see growth on platforms like Facebook because although it's an older audience, they see a lot of success there. But for whatever reason, I mean, the fact that YouTube Shorts is now 1.5 billion users a month are on YouTube Shorts, and we're already posting this vertical TikTok and Instagram Reel content. When you talk about most bang for your buck, taking that content, formatting it 60 seconds or less, which is the max for YouTube Shorts. I'm so surprised that more companies even enlisted our services to make sure that we show up on YouTube Shorts. It's one thing that we're beating the drum and making sure that hopefully people wake up in the next 6 to 12 months on this thing. But yeah, I would say YouTube is not leveraged at all. And like I said, the numbers earlier, 90% of adults that make over 75 grand are on YouTube. A lot of them daily. So if you have a brand at all worth its salt, and you're not showing up with your consumer on YouTube, then I think you're missing out big time. So I would say YouTube and specifically YouTube Shorts, because again, YouTube is pushing that algorithm so much to make that stuff successful.
Awesome. You heard it here first, folks. Run, don't walk if you're not on
Please
YouTube
do.
yet. Get there. So, David, you shared a lot of the potential pitfalls today that folks go through. May be familiar to our audience, may not be. But to wrap things up, as we're running out of time for questions, I want to end on this note. If our audience can take away anything today, what's the number one thing that you see brands getting wrong when they're marketing on social media? Number one pitfall to avoid?
I mean, it sounds so simplistic, but not knowing what success looks like. I think you watching this right now may know exactly what success looks like. And I make this mistake too as a leader. But if I polled all 6 members of your team, what does success look like when it comes to our social media strategy? I think you would get a lot of different answers. And I think as leaders, it's our job to sit down and put together the presentation like, guys, this is where we're going. This is why it matters. This is why it helps us with the bottom line. Because again, it's a very impactful job if we know that. I mean, the Barbie marketing campaign was very impactful once they saw the box office numbers that first weekend, and they broke records, the most ticket sales ever by a movie directed by a woman. These are very amazing, impressive stats that were all built on some really creative marketing distribution methods that were thought about for over a year. So again, if you can make sure that when you ask that, wake your team out in the middle of the night and say, what is our goal on social media? What are we doing on a daily basis? What does success look like? And you can make sure all 5, all 15, all 28 can answer that question the same way. I think you've succeeded as a leader, and you're going to get a lot of amazing results. So just make sure you don't have people, going rogue on a daily basis, doing things that they assume is what's good for your brand, but maybe isn't the best ROI.
Well said. Thanks for that, David. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for questions today. I wish we could keep going. As I mentioned, we'll make sure that David gets forwarded any questions we didn't get to. Thank you very much, David, for taking the time to join us today and for letting us pick your brain.
Thanks for the opportunity. This was fun. Anytime.
Thank you to our sponsor, STN Digital, of course. And thank you to our audience for joining us today. As always, we look forward to seeing everyone at an upcoming Adweek webinar. Thanks all.
Thanks, team. Bye.